From The Australian, here's what's on the front. I'm Claire Harvey. It's Monday, May 12, 2025. Rome's conclave is done, now it's Canberra's turn. This morning, the National Party votes on its leadership, and on Tuesday, the Liberals gather to choose between Susan Lee and a double act featuring Angus Taylor and Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price. Anthony Albanese will today reveal his reshaped cabinet in the wake of a tirade from dumped Minister Ed Husic. Husic says his support for Palestine cost him the job and calls Deputy PM Richard Marles a factional assassin. Pope Leo XIV has been in the job for 3 days and already his biggest early test is looming: how to grapple with the Chinese Communist Party's tightening grip on the Catholic Church. Chinese Catholics, just like all people of faith, have been persecuted in China. But the late Pope Francis signed a deal with Beijing that's wildly controversial. Today, Leo versus the dragon. As Catholics around the world mourned Pope Francis,
1.4 billion Catholics mourning the passing of
Pope Francis.
Pope Francis has died aged 88.
And cardinals made their way to Rome to choose a new pope.
I have no desire to create bitterness in this conclave, and I will be happy to stand down as king.
The Chinese Communist Party was seizing an opportunity. Without consulting the Vatican, China appointed 2 new bishops of the Catholic Church. It was a brazen power move.
It was really quite inappropriate, and the Vatican hadn't been told beforehand. Bishops can only ever be finally appointed in the Church if the reigning Pope signs off on it. And these 2 were appointed after Francis died.
Tess Livingstone is a senior journalist with The Australian. She's spent years reporting and writing about the Catholic Church, including 2 books about the late Cardinal George Pell.
They want the Catholic Church in China for some reason, but they want it on their terms.
The new bishops weren't China's only move during the interregnum between 2 popes.
China has brought in a whole set of new rules from the 1st of May that unless the church workers and indeed church participants and worshippers toe the line on a whole lot of rules, they can be arrested and face criminal charges, which is pretty off-putting to the whole process. That's not just for Catholics either, but other Protestant religions and Buddhists will suffer under that, as will Falun Gong and other groups. They really are cracking down on freedom of religion in China, which is very concerning.
Since Chairman Mao Zedong took control in 1949, China's officially a communist state. That means it's atheist too. Religion is theoretically allowed, but only under the tight control of the Chinese Communist Party. In the late 50s, the Catholic Church was to be incorporated into official Communist Party structures and renamed the Chinese Patriotic Catholic Association. Many Catholics, just like other religious people, have tried to continue practicing their own way in private homes and what's known as the traditional or underground Catholic Church.
Christians have had a very rough deal from the Chinese Communist Party. Many, particularly adherents of the traditional church, have been persecuted. There have been priests in jail there for decades. Lay people tortured pretty brutally too, Claire.
Adding to the tension, the Holy See doesn't recognise mainland China, instead enraging the communists by recognising Taiwan as the true China. And that's where Pope Francis comes in. When he became Pope in 2013, Francis wanted to establish diplomatic relations with China, something previous popes John Paul II and Benedict had also hoped for.
The reason they never signed an agreement was when the negotiations got going, they saw straight away China was just going to impose too many limitations and restrictions on them.
Francis and his Vatican Secretary of State, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, pushed ahead and in 2018 signed an agreement with the government of Xi Jinping. But the agreement is secret. It's never been seen in public.
The agreement meant, I think, that China would be able to ensure that like-minded bishops would be appointed. Bishops in sympathy with the Chinese Communist Party regime, basically. And it caused a huge amount of anger. There's an extraordinary character in Hong Kong, Cardinal Zen. He's 93, going on 50. He's bright and alert. He's very funny, actually. But he said, look, this is a betrayal. You've thrown the faithful Catholics in China under the bus. He travelled to the Vatican to see Francis about it. He was barred on one occasion from seeing Francis, and he was quite public about it. So it really has caused a lot of controversy, and I think the Church in Rome probably thought, with reasonable expectations, that it might generally lead to a bit more religious freedom in general in China for everybody. That has not proven to be the case.
This all sounds very familiar to any student of Chinese history. In the 50s, China invaded Tibet, which the CCP considers Chinese territory, and began brutal repression of monks and clerics. Ancient monasteries were sacked. The young Dalai Lama was whisked out of the country and into India. He's never been back. In 1995, the Chinese government kidnapped the second highest spiritual figure in Tibet, a 6-year-old boy who had been proclaimed Panchen Lama, that is, the reincarnation of a long line of sacred leaders. This boy and his family disappeared into China, and China replaced him with a Panchen Lama of its own choosing. Coming up, how all this played into the election of Pope Leo behind the scenes of the real-life conclave. When the cardinals shuffled into the Sistine Chapel to elect a new pope last week, the China situation loomed large. Two of the men considered frontrunners to be pope were Vatican Secretary of State Pietro Parolin and Luis Tagle, the Filipino cardinal. Tagle was an enthusiastic backer of the China deal, and Parolin, one of the men who'd negotiated it with China, was tarred by association.
It's become of greater concern over the years as China has become more aggressive, especially in our region. No one's forgotten that Cardinal Parolin came out and criticised AUKUS when that agreement was finalised with Australia, the United States and Britain. And he said, it could lead to an arms race in the Pacific, it'll be bad for peace, etc., etc. Now, it was a bit of a one-sided statement, and it rather echoed the Chinese view of AUKUS at the time. So I don't think that did his cause a lot of good with a large group of cardinals.
Robert Prevost came through the middle and was elected Pope Leo XIV. On Saturday, he called a consistory to ask for cardinals' collaboration.
He got all the cardinals together while they're still in Rome and had a meeting. That again was something Francis never liked to do. And Leo said at that meeting, "You're my closest advisors. I want to hear from you." And everyone was delighted about that because it means he'll work with the College of Cardinals. Someone at that meeting, someone who's very experienced, who worked as a Vatican official for many years, he got up and said, look, something has got to be done about this agreement. It is not working out. Now, it's not helping the church and it's not helping people in China, nor is it helping any religion in China.
There must be a bit of a dilemma for Leo now in regards to this Chinese deal, because presumably if he rips it up, the risk is that he exposes Chinese Catholics to retribution.
Oh, persecution, absolutely, Claire. Oh, look, I think people arguing it should be ripped up are being extremely naive. I think he will be a sensible, steady-as-she-goes person. I don't think he will rip it up. It would be good, I think, in the interests of transparency if it was made public and people actually knew the provisions of it. And then, we can see if China is held to account with its part of the bargain. He'll probably try to keep it, but on better terms, and most of all, ensure that China stick to their part of it.
Tess Livingston is a senior journalist with The Australian and the author of several books. You can read her work and all our deep analysis and reporting on matters of faith anytime at theaustralian.com.au. Murdered crook Johnny Shotgun Regan, the focus of our new true crime podcast The Gangster's Ghost, was stock-whipped as a kid by his brutal mother Claire, known as the Colonel. That abuse set Regan on the path to being one of Australia's most feared killers. And you can dive into that investigation right now by joining us at gangstersghost.com.au.